Welcome back to TheChowTimePod. It's your host, Red. Got a video today from FBE Capital, where the Real MTR is under insane attack from feminists. Please extra read them below. I really appreciate that. Let's get that chow time.
I worked on the Diverting Hatred board, where we artificially put Sandman and MTR on the number 1 and 2 spot. This project was led by Caitlin Tierney, founder of Diverting Hate, and consulted on by Professor Jason Blazegas.
An act of violent extremism.
He's the director of the Center on Counterterrorism and was previously stationed in Kabul, Afghanistan. Caitlin told us to use proper research methodology to identify the main targets in the manosphere and rebel space.
We then use that research to effectively target this audience online.
This was a lie. The team heavily manipulated the data.
This is why I tell you guys so often that the most important decision that you will ever make in your life is who you choose to wake up next to.
I had been convicted of manslaughter in the first degree. I had taken my then boyfriend's life.
I love angry women because angry women are free.
Of stabbing her boyfriend to death.
Shooting her boyfriend dead in a jealous rage.
Stabbing her ex-boyfriend more than a dozen times.
At the point that you recognize crazy, let it go. Nothing is worth the risk to your sanity.
Anger, especially in women, is incredibly important. Always be angry.
Where women calling themselves femcells are...
This is a very important video for a lot of us to be watching. Just gonna put it out there. I haven't fully watched any of this, but it feels like one of those videos.
Posting extreme...
I hate men.
We hate men.
Kill all men.
And violent content.
I do think that the key to solve some of the biggest issues within our society today is family building.
Is to nurture that rage.
Wealth transfer, two-parent households.
When I first shot him, he let out a really loud noise.
I do think there's a place for rage. I agree with you, and particularly for women in rage.
That is not reality. We need each other.
Do anything like this to just basically ruin the lives of a man.
Being a stoic, rational, moral man.
And I say that anger.
Look at this. This is the feminist side and MTR side. MTR is on our side, right? We don't really talk about violence against women as in causing it. We don't talk about death of women like that. We don't want to murder women. We don't want women to be gone. We just want women to understand it takes two to tango. It's best if there's a family. It's best if we're married and have kids. Everything just works better that way.
It's just the beginning.
No, women are getting more mentally ill. Shooting him in the face.
I gave him his nose job. He wanted.
They emotionally react to something instead of logically respond to it.
Kill more men in each of them. 50 a week, then 100 men, then 500. How many men do you think must be killed before patriarchy begins to dismantle?
Liberation movements around the world have always claimed the right to be violent.
Killing and mutilating her boyfriend a year ago in Wisconsin.
Against occupying forces. I consider patriarchy an occupying force, and I demand my right to be violent.
Yes, guys, we have now reached a point in society where if you call out truly awful behavior in women...
I told you guys, I want to cover more stories with mothers abusing kids and mothers, I did one of the mother offing her, special needs child and throwing him in the river, and it got demonetized. I put it in my my members only, but yeah, it's just they don't like me talking about women in such a bad light, and we don't really bash women. We're just bringing what they do into light majority of the time.
Now, mind you, the children are in the house screaming. You got to think about the pure insanity, the pure lack of emotional control.
Then you are classified as a raging misogynist.
We work to divert men away from misogynistic rabbit holes online.
The 13 of us were really passionate about early prevention.
However, if you then combine that content with giving men advice on how to deal with real-world situations...
As a man, the worst mistake that you can make in the West today is having kids with the wrong woman. But the fact of the matter is that men are more likely to die early, get hurt on the job, or work themselves to death.
At least 74 people have died in the Bakken oil fields.
Ask Kim where everybody's at, and how many are there, and He just says, Derek Man's dead, the Derek Man's dead.
One of the best lessons that I have learned over the past several months as I have experienced considerable hardship within my life is the benefits of balance.
Then clearly you are a dangerous male supremacist, and they will link you to domestic terrorism.
Misogyny is actually a gateway to other forms of extremism.
The broad issue of domestic terrorism.
It's not religion. I think religion is a good gateway to extremism. Just, people are able to be swayed by religion quite easily.
Or countering terrorism away.
Yep, she actually used those words. It's completely insane. Please drop a like on the video if you think that society hates men informing other men of hypocrisy and flaws in women. And comment down below what you think. Now this is Caitlin Tierney, and she's the driving force behind the Diverting Hate report that put Mediocre Tutorials and Reviews, Legion of Men, Araku TV, and a whole bunch of other creators on a male supremacy list, claiming that they are dangerous and destructive individuals.
He ultimately landed on gender-based violence, misogyny as a link to violence, and then a deeper interest in the incel movement specifically.
Now both MTR and Evan Preach talked about this on their platforms, but they only scratched the surface of this 55-page pile of garbage, since it goes way beyond what was mentioned in their original videos, and things are about to get absolutely crazy. I'm talking Pakistani terrorist network, data manipulation, extramarital affair, and sexual abuse.
Holy, this is like fucking a movie going on right now against us. We're just normal people. We're just men. Leave us alone.
Into all of that, let's back up a bit and talk about why the Real MTR is even being investigated like this in the first place. So if you don't know him, the Real MTR, or Mediocre Tutorials and Reviews, is a major content creator on YouTube.
If you guys watch me, you definitely know who MTR is.
Who focuses on educating men on how to deal with real life situations.
All of the red flags to just go off and think that, maybe she'll get better. Maybe she'll improve. Maybe when there's no incentivization to do so. He's got kids with multiple baby mamas. Please wrap it up, wrap it up, wrap it up, wrap it up.
Now I won't be going into detail on some of these scandals behind the scenes that perfectly explain why Caitlin was able to get this report with so many errors approved and published, since it might reveal the identity of my source. However, this is where Jason Blazakis comes in, and it makes his involvement both problematic and laughably bad, since Jason was both a paid advisor to this research team and an editor of the final report.
Focuses on incel-related violence.
Thanks for that, Jason.
You see, Jason actually has real-world experience with truly dangerous and extremist individuals.
So I was actually in the State Department office as the head of the office responsible for sanctioning individuals and organizations as terrorists. And I was actually in the US government chair when we designated Sirajuddin Haqqani as a specially designated global terrorist.
So to put that into perspective here,
we're just as bad as this guy? Have you guys done the things that this guy has done?
Haqqani is one of the most dangerous terrorists on the planet, with a $10 million FBI bounty on his head. And the guy who studied Haqqani and tried to kill or capture him for years looked at MTR's content and said, yeah, that is a dangerous individual. Put him on an extremist list in a report filled with misogyny and hate. Now some of you might think, well wait just a minute, it's not an extremist list, right? It is a male supremacy list. Well, in that case, you've been tricked by feminist semantics, because the only reason why they are calling it a male supremacy list is because guys like MTR are a little too tan to be called white supremacist. Or far-right extremist. However, make no mistake, that is exactly what they mean when they say male supremacy.
You know about white supremacy, but have you heard of male supremacy? It's a kind of potentially violent extremism that experts say is on the rise. Male supremacy can be defined as a hateful ideology advocating for the subjugation of women.
See what I mean? And this is how they try to use the game of degrees of separation to then link those creators like MTR to violent extremism in real life.
What is referred to as the manosphere, which is essentially the online world where men sort of trade secrets on how to get / control / violate women.
Now this very polarized.
We trade secrets on how to violate women? I don't even know these secrets. Do you guys know them?
and dangerous game is exactly the gospel of Caitlin Tierney, but perhaps the most telling part of this entire report, and clear evidence that they are not being truthful at all, is that nowhere in these 55 pages will you find a single instance of them mentioning their conversion results. That is highly suspicious, because the whole point of their research was, as they say, divert men away from dangerous sources and towards healthier handpicked options that they control.
Our strategy is to divert men, incel and incel adjacent audiences, away from misogynistic content online and towards community groups through advertising and partnership building.
So then where is the data for this? How many men have they actually diverted? Why would you not mention this anywhere in the entire report when that is your main focus? Caitlin even mentions this as being one of their key performance indicators, or KPIs, and she says that these KPIs are essential for their own research. They are essential for measuring success, and yet these KPIs are completely missing from the report. These women even believe that if you consume
This is why I watch men that are much smarter than me.
Any conservative media or content tailored to men, that you have a mental health disorder.
Observing the common rhetoric of Fox News or right-wing media, and that they're just sort of becoming these radicalized groups through what we identified as a lot of it being a lack of mental health resources.
These women dismiss every valid criticism that men have on marriage, feminism, modern dating, and politics in general as just simple misogyny and far-right extremism, and it's why this entire 55-page report is filled with mistake after mistake after mistake, and it doesn't even adhere to basic reporting standards for scientific research. Here, on page 5, no caption and no number. Then again, on page number 10, no caption and no numbering for this table. Then following that, all of these images are missing proper captioning and numbering, until we get to page 29 with the first figure 1. But then on page 42, again we find figure 1. So which figure 1 are you referring to?
Again, why we watch much smarter men and people than we are ourselves. I wouldn't have caught this shit. I'm a horrible reader. My English sucks.
Later in the report. This is why official captioning standards dictate the use of chapters and subchapters. Another thing that's standard for research reporting is citation lists. You need a proper APA citation list with names of the books, journals, or reports that you used with their page numbers and edition. This way, someone can quickly verify that your information is correct and from a credible source. But again, that is totally missing, just like the dates of the websites that they accessed. Websites can be updated and changed all the time, which is why the dates are important for reproducing the research. Now, this all might seem trivial if you've never written a proper scientific report, but trust me, these are first-year mistakes and they are not tolerated at any proper master or PhD level. I studied at the Technical University in Delft and also at the Bocconi University in Milan, and this would have never been graded at both of these institutions. But the real problem here is that those things are only the beginning, and it gets so much worse from here. Because if you look at the male supremacy list, two things stand out immediately. 1. Why are the most extreme creators on that list only scoring in the middle of the pack?
I was always wondering about that, and I don't think Sandman is that bad as like Pearl and Meteor and freaking Fresh and Fit. Yeah, Sandman can be harsh, but I don't think Sandman's that bad.
This is like making a list of the worst Nazis and going 1 Goebbels, 2 Himmler, 3 Aretha Franklin, 4 Göring, 5 Pikachu, and 6 Hitler. That makes absolutely zero sense. And the second thing that stands out is that by the team's own accord, they claim to be focusing on 11 prominent accounts and influential figures in the manosphere on YouTube. However, they then handpick Sandman and 21 Studios and put them on the list as well. Now, no shade to them, but I'm purely looking at the numbers here, and when you do, that doesn't make any sense. With Sandman, most of his videos for the past 12 months did not break 10k views, and 21 Studios hasn't even uploaded a single video or stream in the past 9 months. And before that, most of their videos struggled to even break 5k views. So how the hell is that considered influential on YouTube? Especially when you have major creators like Alexander Grace easily breaking 100k views per video, or the widely successful and now infamous Whatever podcast that has multiple channels going viral both on YouTube and TikTok, so there's no way they would have missed these or other channels.
I also wondered why they didn't have these particular channels on there. Like, freaking Whatever podcast is literally the biggest one now. Now that Fresh and Fit are kind of out, I don't see anybody bigger than them. And how did they not even make the bottom of the list?
Channels, especially if you would be doing thorough research as they claim. Now obviously, I'm not trying to throw Alexander or the Whatever podcast under the bus here. I don't think either of them should be on a male supremacy list. However, what I am trying to point out is that these so-called researchers are not even following their own logic, and that their own methodology is already falling apart before we even get started with the actual calculations. Now at this point, combined with all the other information, you can already tell that this entire report just stinks to high heaven, and is just a feminist fever dream riddled with errors driven solely by emotion and anger. But wait, it gets even worse, since not only did the team not understand their own measuring metrics, but they actually changed the definition of those metrics and then compared them with industry standards to give a false impression of success. For instance, if you look at the only result that they did publish, which was the ad view rates, also known as the view through rates, or VTR, of 50%, then we see that they claim to have beaten the industry average of 30%. That sounds amazing, right? Well, it is actually completely made up, and it's the reason why they won't publish the raw data. You see, YouTube's official method for calculating the view-through rate is ad views over impressions. However, not every single ad view counts as an actual ad view. The ad view must comply with one of three measuring standards, which are 1. Viewed for 20 seconds on a 20-second video ad, 2. Viewed for 32 seconds on a 40-second video ad, or 3. It must have a click on the ad after 18 seconds of view time. These are the official metrics used to calculate VTR. However, Caitlin and her team did not use this. They made up their own metric, which they state as the skippable video ad is not skipped after 5 seconds. Now, since you obviously can't skip the ad for the first 5 seconds, this way of measuring is going to have a much higher view-through rate, and it tells you nothing about the viewer's interest. It's simply a measure of how quickly someone can click skip as soon as the skip becomes available. And this is why YouTube uses a much more thorough method of measuring. And so by YouTube standards, this leads to an average VTR on the platform of 10 to 15%. So the 30% that Caitlin is referring to is actually from third-party sources focusing on the most highly optimized industry ads that targets the user's interest. However, Caitlin and her team are doing the complete opposite, since they are trying to divert the user away from their interest to something that the viewer is normally not interested in.
We saw some interesting click-through rates, especially given that this group doesn't normally click on things that are necessarily good for them, or
but yet somehow they are still
we don't like clicking on things that are good for us.
easily outperforming those optimized industry ads. You see how insane this sounds? So clearly this is incorrect, and they are presenting false data here. So to summarize this entire mess, in a 55-page report dedicated to diverting men away from hate, not one mention on the actual conversion ratios of how many men they actually diverted, and thus showing us their effectiveness. Not a single mention of their own click-through rates, not a single mention of how many page visits to those alternative resources, not a single mention of their own key performance indicators that Caitlin herself called essential for measuring success. So when you put all of this together, it is complete insanity that Professor Jason Blazakis allowed such a garbage report to go ahead and be published, and it shows that the Middlebury Institute that produced these clowns is a complete joke of a university, and a total waste of your $48,000 a year tuition. This type of garbage research is why ordinary people don't trust science anymore.
True.
And it's why most social science today is complete trash. This was why the Real MTR is under attack. Please drop a like on the video.
That was intense. That was like James Bond trying to prevent the world from just getting destroyed. Shoutouts to freaking FBE Capital. That man's a genius. Please subscribe down below. I really appreciate that. And catch you guys next time. Ciao.